This is gonna be a really interesting chat, I think, and, people know. Oh, and by design, my guest has her camera off. I'm here with Liz, who has, just started a job teaching at a rural school, and, Liz came across one of my articles, and it's really an interesting thing because I've spent a lot of my life processing my experience in a very conservative, very hostile rural school, and, what it was like for me as a curious person who appreciated intelligence and education, how I was constantly subjected to pressure and to conform and to use, rote memorization and just instant obedience to authority rather than reason. So I'm here today with Liz, who has just started a job in a place like that, and she's approaching this from the angle of an adult who's seeing it from the side of a teacher. And so I'm just really curious to compare notes about what my experience was like as a person who was not doing well in a scenario like that versus Liz, who is trying to struggle to survive as a professional in a situation like that. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Liz.
Hi, yeah, good to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. I have been an educator for decades, and I started out in high school as a high school English teacher in an urban setting. Went on to work in higher ed for many years and find myself through the sort of changes in higher ed back in a classroom. And there was a position that opened up. My teaching certification just needed to be renewed. It hadn't been used for many years. And there was a second semester English teacher position at a rural high school, um, about almost 45 minutes from where I live. And so I took this job and I was, um, really excited to get into the classroom. I, of course, did some research on the community and have been so overwhelmed with this experience and how difficult it is as I adjust and coming across your piece, reading what your perspective as a former student was just so eye-opening to me and helped explain what I've been experiencing or, help me see it from another side. So I wrote to you and then we just set up this conversation. So yeah, I would just love to kind of go back and forth about what you
Oh,
what you experienced and what I'm seeing and how it relates really to what we're seeing in our larger culture, right? Because
yes.
we what what I keep saying every night when I come home to this is so deep,
Yes.
um, and what's happening in our world. These kids in the school, the morning after the Super Bowl were
Oh boy.
extremely keen to tell one another, especially the boys, that they had not watched Bad Bunny. They will not watch Bad Bunny. It should be in English, and
Yeah.
we're watching Kid Rock, and it's like, guys, Bad Bunny is a lot cooler than Kid Rock. Like,
Yeah.
you can like Bad Bunny, like you're young, but they were deeply invested in making sure each other knew where they
Yes.
were, and this is just so it's deep. It's not like
Yeah.
the old people are the only ones. It's happening with the very young teens, and I it's just an
Yeah. Oh,
overwhelming
are you
to me.
still there? You cut out a little bit. You there?
Yeah, here. Mhm.
So let me just reply. And I saw Daedra's here, and we had a wonderful conversation about this the other day, and so this is ongoing. I think people just don't understand because I keep telling people I grew up in this, rural conservative where I would get, physically attacked for reading. And I just this whole mechanism, we see how racism and just anti-intellectualism is so installed in the American psyche to the extent that this is a country that allows mass shootings at schools.
Right,
It's like because that I feel that is, white supremacy ideology, lack of respect for human life. And it's the kids. Kids are indoctrinated with it. And exactly like you said, because a fully formed adult, when presented with the ideology of white supremacy, would just laugh at it because it's this offensive ideology. And the white supremacists know that. And
right.
so they have particularly targeted rural areas to indoctrinate our kids. And yeah, like one of these examples, like you said, kids and my kids had to deal with it. Although in my school, my daughters are both fluent in Spanish, and this where we've gone has been a little bit better, where they've defiantly been open Spanish speakers their whole career, and so we've made inroads that way. But I mean these smaller schools, like where I grew up, we had 100 students in our class. That's a real danger area. But I'm curious what it was in my article, what particular things grabbed your attention, and let's, keep going that way.
Yeah, I mean, I this the ways in which the teachers and parents participate in the undermining of education was, I would say, the first thing and that stood out to me in what you were saying that I'm experiencing in the library on one of my
Oh,
first days. I have a study hall in the library. There are nobody touches any books in that library. It's a time to be on screens. Um, and this boy came and returned a book, and there isn't a librarian. There's a person who graduated from that high school in sometime in the past who's an aide. So there's nobody trained in library
yeah.
science, in there. There's an aide who's keeping track of um, basically who checks out the laptops and things like that. And a boy returned a book, and she said to him, "Oh, are you a smarty now? You reading
Huh,
books now?" Like teasing him for having returned a book, and this is the person in the library. And I thought,
yeah.
why would you do that? But as I've been there now, I see this pattern repeating itself over and over to this, not universally, but so often that the adults in charge of, encouraging reading or whatever it may be are participating in that. And you wrote something about how the teachers were mocked,
Yeah.
or the teachers by the parents. And, it's not like there are these resistant kids and there are all these adults trying to help them see why learning is so important. That is not what's happening. It's a systemic thing. And
Yeah.
children who want to learn and who are excited are pushing back against a lot of forces
Yeah.
themselves.
Which article was it of mine that you read? What was the title? Do you remember?
But the rural school almost killed me.
Oh, okay. The rural school. Just the rural school almost killed me or something about that? I'll have to
Yeah,
find the
something
one.
like that was the title. I don't have it up.
And yeah, I mean, I got so much I used to become angry when the teachers would give me reading material because I had my own books I wanted to read, but
Mhm.
I'd get through the stuff they gave me as quick as possible, and then it's like they'd get mad at me because 'cause I'd be sitting in the class reading my book, and they'd be like, "Well, are you done with your homework?" I'm like, "When have I never been done? When have I not been done with
Yeah,
my homework? I'm always done with my so just leave me alone." And I would get and like these I said, the other students where I was like, "How can you be such a smartass all the time? You're not getting in trouble." It's because 'cause I'm only just sitting there making snippy remarks about how I wanna learn more.
yeah,
And, like, I kinda hit that point where the teachers they had that point of shame, where they weren't gonna be like, "Oh, Walter Walter was being disruptive because he was demanding that we actually cover the lesson." We
yeah,
couldn't have, we couldn't have parent-teacher conferences about that, so I could get away with this kinda stuff. But
right.
people just don't understand how much you have to go, so I really appreciate your validating my experience
Mhm,
here.
mhm. Yeah, really. And, so I've started a Substack, to try to talk about some of these things, and it's called No Poet Society. And, I was writing last night because one of the so there are there's a canned curriculum that you have to go through. There's very little, autonomy on the part of the teachers, and there's already slides and PowerPoints already made for us to just basically go through. But we're on the transcendentalists, and I thought, I'm not going to just let this slide. Like, I mean, we need to talk about Emerson and Thoreau here. If like we're going to do it, and I started saying to the kids, who loves America? Well, what do you love? How about this? How about this literature? How about this philosophy? People come from all over the world to Walden Pond because they've been so moved by this. And he's writing about a rural place that looks like what we can see out our window of this classroom. So what does it mean to love this country? One of the things it could mean is that you love the transcendentalists and you're proud that this place created that. Those ideas, they look, but right, they haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Somebody, and I say, I take this seriously. I say,
Yeah.
this matters. Like, this matters. I mean, and luckily for me, I don't care if they laugh at me. Like, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I want to find a space. I want to create a space where the people who are
Yeah.
curious about this are not being laughed at. Me getting laughed at is of no interest to me whatsoever by them. You know what I mean?
I'm my heart's going out to you now because I think I'm getting a picture of what your experience is like, and I mean, and I'm reflecting because it's and I wrote an article recently about the white supremacy school, how all these rural schools are white supremacy schools,
Mhm.
and they just like the way they're so cruel. And first of all, let me just say there are going to be 1 or 2 kids that you reach, and you are going to save their lives, okay? So just I mean, fortify yourself with that, because I
Yeah.
know it's one of the things. Because 'cause I'll complain a lot about all the things I had to endure, but along the way, there was always 1 or 2, and there were just a couple words here or there, a little bits of encouragement. So that's really important. But the side about, like, because white kids that are indoctrinated with this white supremacy, the way you get through to them, though, I mean, it's mockery, and this is why I keep saying because people will resist me on this. They're like, we need humility, right? And, if you can frame things as jokes or dismissive, and so much of my personality was like this, where people couldn't even tell what I really believed for a long time because I was just being snarky about everything, and
Mhm.
that was a consequence, and it didn't it helped me survive when I was in, like, these white supremacy rural schools, but it didn't work so well when I got into the academic community and I had to
Mhm.
recalibrate. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, if you can reach a couple more, I mean, yeah, this is just gonna be a learning process this year. Uh,
Yeah.
oh,
I mean, I'm trying to be earnest about the project of education, and that's really what I'm offering. And there was this one kid who said to me the other day, he said, he's looking at me, he said, "Do you like read books and poetry?"
yeah,
And I said, "All the time. All the
yeah,
I read poetry all the time. I read books. I read a book this weekend. I couldn't put it down." And
yeah,
he was looking at me like, "Huh," like, "You're serious." I don't know how, and I'm not trying to put myself, I know this might even sound bad. I'm trying to just model,
yeah.
it's okay to take this seriously. Um, and it's actually, I do. And
Maybe
so
that'll work.
you
Yeah.
should. But on my Substack, I have this like drawing on the that I put up as like, I don't know, the banner or something. And it was drawn for me by a student, and it's an owl. And she said she made it for me in study hall, and it's like
Oh.
books, and I had given them a Billy Collins poem just because Billy Collins is accessible, and she had made Billy Collins and an owl, and she said, "Your wisdom matters," or
Oh, there you go.
so I'm gonna keep that from that girl because she is just a back of the room, quiet person that,
Yeah.
and something, she's kinda like she's rooting for me, and
Yeah.
she is seeing, so
Politics.
maybe
Yeah.
there'll be a few like her and in during this time, and it can't be everybody, but each person matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, the 1 or 2 you get through, there might be a few more. Also, it's just gonna be this learning experience, and I shouldn't speak too confidently, because my group, what I had to put up with is probably hugely different than what you have to put up with. And if you have a couple that are actually even listening,
Mhm.
this is in high school, it must be,
It's
uh
high school. Yeah, it's ju they're j I have mostly juniors.
okay. Yeah, but I
Pretty
mean,
far
I'm
along in their education, and they
yeah,
don't have much more to go in their education. This is a not fewer than half are college bound. Those who are college bound are
yeah,
not going into the liberal arts.
yeah,
So, this acquaintance with literature is, there isn't much left
yeah,
for them in probably formal settings going forward. So I feel like I want to do it. I want to show them.
yeah. Oh, what a great you'll be able to write a book after this year, I bet.
Yeah.
And, I guess you're pretty close to the end of the year now, or did you
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes till June. So,
okay.
and then I have to reflect on if I want to continue and if I have the strength to continue, because it is rare. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
And like I said, I think maybe because a lot of people just don't believe the reality of what's going on in these rural places and
Mhm.
how it's like, how can we expect to have, good leaders if we allow massive parts of our country to just be completely without culture or diversity, where it's even encouraged that they not read? Like people just cannot believe. And I was talking to Will Fullwood about it. He was just like, "We got to encourage people to listen to their integrity." I think some of these systems deprive children of developing their integrity. Like
Mhm,
if you aren't are taught to mock literature and stories and all these things that are the best things in life, how are you possibly going to have develop an appreciation for human
mhm,
life? And
mhm,
that's the system, that's fundamental to the system. So
mhm.
what you can come up with and what you observe as this experience, I think it's we just got to expose what's going on.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's not what it's not what I thought. It's you know,
Yeah. That,
it's not even the worst place in the country, it's not even I'm not in a place where you're like, "Well, of course, the poverty." This is a normal rural place is what I'm
yeah.
trying to this has gotta be common, and there are places probably much worse than where I am. Um
I'll give you some more examples, like, when I was because I was, like, really eager to learn how to read, and, so I got, like and the school just wasn't going fast enough, so I was like, "I'm gonna get, like, the movie version, and we're gonna not say Polly, we're gonna, we're keeping Liz's camera off just because just keep it a little bit anonymous that way," but, um I wanted to learn to read faster, so I got, like, the novelizations of movies, like Star
Mhm.
Wars, and I was because 'cause I'd seen the movie and I'm like, "So this is what I did for myself." I'm like, "'Cause I wanna learn to read faster and I visualized the movie, and so this allows me to learn how to read," and the teachers were so mad because I wasn't doing and here I am struggling with, like, an actual chapter book, and they're, like, actively discouraging me from reading chapter books every single time. And then I had to do book reports, and it was always like the amount of effort they'd use, like, "Oh, you're doing stuff that's too hard for you. You shouldn't be reading this." And it's
Yeah.
just like, I think people, it's like, and I knew it, like, I should be celebrated for what I'm doing here. This is
Mhm.
remarkable what I'm doing, but it's like the constant resistance there. Are you
Mm.
seeing experiences like that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely resistance. There's been a resistance. I'm trying to put a stop to, them using ChatGPT to write. And I'm getting a lot of resistance on that from
Aha.
the other teachers and the administration because I'm trying to institute, like, in-class writing assignments,
Yeah.
not on because they're issued laptops, and so these laptops then become their own problem because they're so tethered to the laptops that I have behavior issues when I say, "Laptops closed, we're gonna do this on paper," that's
Oh,
is extraordinary. So then in with the laptops, we've got all of these, programs so that we can monitor what they're doing on the laptop so that they're on task, and it's like, why don't we just close the laptops
yeah.
and we can all be on task with a piece of paper? And so but they want to the students, like all of us in our society, are tempted by having this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
technology complete our assignments, and I'm not getting full buy-in
Oh gosh,
from
yeah.
my colleagues to try to put a stop to it. And I was, you are opening a can of worms if you
Yeah.
start trying I was told that's a quote. You're opening a can of worms if you try to stop ChatGPT. I'm like, well, I I mean, I don't want to read something written by ChatGPT out here,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, they can't use it on, like, an ACT test, can they? I mean,
No,
so
right.
that could be, but I mean, what you're seeing, and I keep telling people, this is the white supremacy indoctrination, and they wanna tell kids that they're entitled and that they don't have to do work and they don't have
Mhm.
to, and critical thinking, that's for, we don't need to know anything about what those critical thinkers, and I mean, these arguments like, "Geez, when you get sick, where do you go? Do you go to, like, just some dude at the bar, or do you go to the doctor?" It's like, you go to a doctor because that person has read some books, right?
Right.
And it's just we have to kinda bring it back to that level. I think that helps. Have you done any, reading to them? I always found that was really effective.
Yes, yes. So we were doing, yeah. So again, with the transcendentalists, it's very dense. It's difficult. And so I was reading to them, and having them read along. And, you could see that after a few days of that, not all of them, but some of them were kind of catching on. So slowing it down, putting it on
Yeah.
paper and reading to them was yeah, that those were some of the positive days. And again, but I was told by the superintendent when I was hired, he was talking to me about how proud he was that he had ChatGPT write his graduation speech, the superintendent of this small rural district. So that you're not going to get a lot of help trying to
Yeah.
put a stop to it when the superintendent is doing it, you know? So, it is it's a complex problem,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
out
I
there.
found 'cause, yeah, I would always have success. There've been classes I've taught where I did nothing but I would just bring in I was like, the only thing that's getting through to them at all and I just, like, spend the whole time reading to them. And a
Mhm,
lot of times, though, you see because there's a hunger in these kids, and it starts to they start to trust you, and you start reading things, and you can, like, stop and have conversations about it, and you actually but you kinda feel it that change happen in the
mhm,
classroom. I'm sure you know this.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, and I would do things like, "Let's do some Shakespeare. We're not gonna read the whole play. We're just gonna read the soliloquies," and you do, like, the cry havoc, and it's like, "This is some pretty badass shit
Yeah,
to say to somebody, isn't it?" And
yeah,
it's like, "Let loose the dogs of war," and then you make them scream it, and then, it gets kinda like but that kinda ties in because what you have to do is recognize their white supremacy indoctrination. They've been taught to mock everything, they've been taught to be dismissive, but they've also been taught, like, the ideology of conquest, and so
yes,
if you can use these things that they've already been indoctrinated with to awaken kind of a love
yeah,
of literature, that's a
mhm,
viable strategy.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm like, "Who says they love this country in here?" Well,
Yeah,
what do you love? What is
yeah,
it? What is it? Is it some vague idea? Where did that idea come from? Well, one thing to love is these American writers.
yeah.
No one
There you
else
go.
did this. No one else did this. They have this isn't Shakespeare. This is
Yeah,
Emerson. It's ours. Be proud of, you know, who knows, but I don't know if that idea has ever been presented to them, but, like, that's okay, you love this country? Great. What about it? How about this?
yeah, I think, yeah, that's important, and you're protecting yourself too. I suppose, Frederick Douglass is right off the curriculum, though. I
Yeah,
bet they wouldn't
yeah. Haven't seen that.
Well, what happens if you just bring it in?
Yeah, yeah,
Would you get
exactly.
fired?
No, I don't think so. But, let me tell you this, and I don't want to, this school was affected by, as many schools were, by the Charlie Kirk.
Ugh,
Um,
yeah,
so there were people who, in not necessarily in this school, but in the surrounding communities, there were school board meetings and people getting forced out of their jobs for supposedly saying something about Charlie Kirk and the parents piling on Facebook. There was that stage when people were getting
yeah.
canceled and fired for supposedly saying he deserved it.
Well, for
Oh,
quoting him, for
y
just saying the things that he said, he'd get
right,
fired.
and
Yeah,
so, there is a sense that quote unquote politics is really dangerous at this school to talk about. Um, the parents and the community are kind of primed for that. So what that ends up being, to your point, is that anything that isn't white is seen as dangerous and and politicizing, and that's where that white supremacy continues um to
yeah,
grow, because if you say anything, bring in Frederick Douglass, poof, the antenna will be up.
yeah,
And so that ends up reinforcing itself. So I'm not saying, that there's no room for that, but it all comes with a sense of fraughtness, being fraught, to do that.
uh-huh,
And like, I mean, but the students have, I mean, another thing that I wrote about was there are, in these rural communities, there are undocumented people from Mexico that live and work in the agriculture. And so there are students who are Spanish speaking. And there was a knock at the door, and this one kid said, "Look out, it's ICE." And then the rest of the kids laughed. This is the week of Renee Good
oh god,
and Preddy being killed, and so they're joking about ICE, and then they say to this kid, "Look out, Ricardo, it's ICE." The one kid who is Spanish speaking, and that's just normal.
yeah,
And so I tried to stop that in the moment, speak to the people involved, but the last thing Ricardo wants is for me to talk about that to him. He doesn't want to tell me how he feels about that. He just wants to put his head down and
yeah,
his day.
yeah,
So, you know, that's just that kind of stuff is just taken as absolutely normal.
yeah. What would happen if you brought in, like, the Diary of Anne Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be something that would be good. That they were reading Night in another class, and I hesitate to teach, the Holocaust, especially Night, to children who are coming from these, because Night is too, to me, that's too overwhelming, too theological, too horrifying to really treat. And so the Diary of Anne Frank doesn't take you into the camps, it takes you into this girl's life, and so it's
Yeah.
much better. I actually am opposed to teaching Night to children, but they have it in ninth grade in that curriculum. So one thing that could happen, especially next year if I have more freedom to plan the curriculum, is to bring in things like that that sort of help to help them engage with things they may have already encountered from another perspective.
Mhm. What's the violence like at this school?
What's the violence like?
Yeah, do kids are kids? Because our school was just
Right.
brutal.
Mm, I haven't seen too much. I've seen one fight, um, but I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes with the things that they text to each other, and, there is this fear that I feel of being in a school like that. The fear of mass shootings is with me. I know that the students fear it, and I have children of my own who told me about their daily fears of going to high school. But I think every day, like, there's a women's restroom and there's 2 doors before you can get into the women's restroom, and whenever I'm in there, I feel this is where I would be safe if this were to happen.
Ugh.
That every single time, um, this is a community awash in guns. The kids, when they get a chance on their laptops, are looking up guns, and there's a website called, I don't know, something Pew Pew, and they love it, and there's guns that they can look at and talk about with each other. So, to me, I haven't seen the violence break out, but I feel this sort of, like, low level violence that kind of preoccupies, the kids and their families.
Are you seeing a lot of, like, just cliques too with, like, social circles that are really exclusive
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
And,
then just outsider kids? Yeah.
yeah, and it's hard. So my kids went to a larger high school, and in a larger community, and they had, of course, they have much more diversity around LGBTQ issues, non-binary kids. And in this school, it's like you would think that doesn't exist. you know,
Okay.
there isn't. So I feel, but you can still tell there are kids that are, just waiting to get out of there so they can be who they are, because in
Okay.
that space, there's so little room for it. Hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a
that's
hard
there's
place and hard for me to be there, but then I think it would be harder to it's hard as it is to teach there, would be harder to be a student there,
yeah.
especially
No,
with goals for themselves and, curiosity and hopes and,
yeah. No, I remember that too, and I was getting to the point. Well, in my last year, I had my list. I had, like, some random list of the 100 greatest books ever written that I was, like, reading these books, like,
Mhm.
defiantly reading these books, and they're like, "Why are you reading these?" And I'm just like, "'Cause I gotta you guys aren't preparing me for college. I have to be prepared."
Yeah.
And then but it's like too, because they install so much even when you're actively doing that, and what I wanna convey to people too is because they install so much self-sabotage into you when you're trying to survive in a situation. Because I was so hostile to education, so, like, I got out of my school and it took me a long time to trust even my professors, like,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Mhm. Yeah, that they have that you're on the same you were at odds with the people who were supposed to be teaching you.
oh, I didn't trust him in at all, and I
Yeah.
had to do all the things independently, so yeah.
Mhm.
Ah, boy, it sounds like you're having how much time do you have today too? I don't mean to take your
Oh,
whole
I
day.
can I can chat for a while. I
Okay,
mean,
we
there are
can make it an
questions,
hour.
or I don't know how you what else would be helpful, but
Oh, no, this is as much for you just to get stuff off your chest, and then we'll just kinda this is I always consider this exploration too, so people in the chat, we got quite a few people listening in, but I think just number 1, well, I wanna fortify you just to kinda validate too what you're seeing, because it's like I'm at that position where I lived through something similar and you get to adulthood and it's finally you're looking back and it's like it takes a long time to even really come to terms with what that experience meant, you know, and
Mhm.
to like kind of walk through and make sense of it. But yeah, I do just want to emphasize too, you are going to this year save a couple lives. I mean, you're going to transform the lives of a couple people. So thank you for doing that. I
Well,
mean,
thank you for
I know it's
saying that.
hard.
And you have to realize, yeah, I have to remind myself that because what I would like to do is turn the whole system around and make it into a new place and have everybody, rejoicing over learning, right? I think that I mean, I can't do that, and so each day that I don't do that, I'm trying not to feel like it was a failure, but instead look at these moments and, the girl who made me the owl picture.
Yeah.
um, I'm thinking about, putting together, like, a Saturday writing workshop if I can get
Ooh.
permission, and and I mentioned the idea, and there were, guffaws and, "Oh, you should do that," to this, and I said, "Oh, no, no. I mean, this'll be people will have to apply to come to this writing workshop if I do it. So, no, if you're not interested, don't worry about it. You won't be invited," trying to make it into, like, an exclusive thing, and I could see couple people like, "Really? Is she really
Yeah.
gonna do that?"
That's good. If
So,
you're the best of the best, we'll let you
like,
in.
"Yeah, don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Don't worry about it over there. You probably wouldn't make it into this anyway." Sort of turning the tables like this.
Yeah.
So, um
Yes,
so
that's really important. That's good. I'm glad you learned that tactic.
Mhm. Yeah. "Oh, I wouldn't go to that." "Oh, well, you probably wouldn't get
Yeah,
in."
you're not invited, buddy. We don't want
Yeah,
you there.
yeah,
You're
exactly.
not good enough. People get
So
mad at me, but I tell you, you have to do that in these rural places. That's the only language bullies understand, and
Mhm,
you got a class. The whole community is grooming them to be bullies, and you
mhm.
got a little bit. Humility is important.
Yeah,
Humility, accountability, being humble. These are the opposite of what white supremacy teaches. And if
mhm,
you show them how absurd they are, because that white supremacy ideology just makes you worthless, it is the way to enable them to come around. But yeah, I want another thing I just wanted to say, you're not gonna reach them all. You're just not
yeah,
going to. So just put that out. I mean, just don't think you're a failure. It's like celebrate the ones you do reach.
yeah,
You need to do this for your mental health. You
yeah,
will reach some. Celebrate those ones. That it matters to the ones you reach. And don't
yeah.
act like it's a failure because it's not 100% because it's just not going to be. You don't have the resources to do that.
No, it's too deep of a problem. I also wanna say that, this is a very sexist school in addition
Yeah,
to
yeah,
racist, okay? And that does not what the way that so I have a class where, when I first got there, they were throwing things at me.
yeah, yeah,
Also, there's a culture of loudly passing gas, saying things, and it's like, I am old enough to be all of your mothers,
yeah,
and you should not, but there's a very toxic kind of sexism that, of course, is all tied up in this as well, and that's
yeah,
something that's part of this too, and so, um, I've been advised to if is any trouble with any of the guys on the football team to go talk to their coach because that is what they will listen to. And it's true, they have respect for him and not for me, but that's also kind of reinforcing
yeah,
the problem because they ought to have respect for me, not just because their coach says so, but it's true that the times that I have had behavior problems and gone to the coach, those have that's turned it around.
yeah. I'll have to talk. That one, I'll have to talk to my wife about that because she's a teacher too, dealing with. My wife's from South America, so she's had to deal with a lot of that. And
Mhm.
I'll have to specifically ask her the tactics she uses because I, I didn't have that issue. I could always just be kind of like, but that's a different thing. My wife would know, and I don't know those tactics.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
and then so like, I was going to ask you the disruptive stuff. Have they stopped throwing things at you then?
Yeah, so that was something that, um, that was taken seriously, and when
Good.
so it was
Kept
like
them separate.
broken pens and things, whenever I would turn my back, and, so that I told the administration, and then they brought in the police officer who said, "If you do that, that's assault of a teacher." So they
Ah,
were
okay, good.
willing to take that seriously, but it's the continued disruptions are really, it's disruptive and, um, A
Yeah.
and the ones that, like, when things are starting to get there's a flow and we're that's when some of them will be like, "Whoa, I'm losing control here. I need to get more and more disruptive."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When things are going well on and we're talking
Yeah.
about a poem, and then also there's a fear there, "Wait, I I need to disrupt this." So, yeah, it's the behaviors are surprising.
Oops, I'm gonna call him to turn this off. Somebody's probably asking for money. But yeah, okay, so that's really important because okay, so the scenario is you're finally getting the kids. Boy, they're persistent. You're reading a poem. You're finally getting engagement. People are coming with, and then like the head bullies of the class, they're like, okay, they sense that change in atmosphere, and so they do just something to just destroy it.
Yeah,
And again, I tell people how aggressive this action is because this is robbing all the other kids of the opportunity to have a good school, and that's again, that's how this white supremacy and Deidre was saying, white supremacy and misogyny go hand in hand, of course,
mhm,
always. And
mhm,
on all those different levels that they're working, and they're denying and attacking education, attacking people that want to do better. And that's part of the reason I've realized growing up, I was reading, I was doing well. Oh, you think you're smart because you did well on this test, and you're constantly getting attacked. And it's because they all know that they've adopted this ideology where they're stuck. And it's like the line from the Bob Dylan song rather than come out of where they're down, they'd rather pull you down into the hole where
mhm,
they are,
mhm.
and they wanna keep everybody down there. Now, can you kick them out of the class when they do that? It's like, "Get out. You're done. Get out of here."
Yeah, so I did, kick this one kid out. He was the worst of the worst, and ended up in a meeting with his mother,
Oh, boy.
um, and in that meeting, a threat was made. He said, "I could do a lot worse than what I have done." And I said, "That feels like a threat." And then the mother was on the side of the son, and claiming that I led him into this. Um,
Oof.
and so, and so that one has been permanently removed from my class.
Okay. That's a good
So
call.
that's good.
Yeah.
And he really would not tolerate anybody taking anything seriously. So that's a positive thing because there are
Yeah.
people that are there will not be any reaching them. I think he might have been in that category. So yeah, and then that rises to a safety issue, I mean,
Yeah. You
so
know, because now that you say that, because maybe some of the reasons I didn't get in trouble because I used to take out a lot of those bullies just by being maybe you could get some, like, student allies. I didn't think of that maybe I was this position and maybe the teachers took to me because there were kids I would if they said something to destroy something I thought was interesting, I would let them have it.
yeah.
And I was
And
always
then
kind of allowed to
then
do
what
that.
happened to you if you after you did that, did they come for you later?
Well, I mean, I had to deal with stuff when I was smaller, but I got to be pretty physically big. So,
Okay, that
it's
helped.
like finally once I got to be like 6 feet tall, and it's just sort of like, yeah, and a lot of the other students, I think over time it was harder when I was younger, and over time, because I could be pretty entertaining, and it's so like but it was like entertaining for the purpose that it was weird. I was like the opposite of like a class clown because I actually wanted to learn things.
Yeah,
So I don't think like the trope of what I was has never appeared in any kind of literature.
yeah, you were one of a kind.
Oh,
Somebody had a comment about politeness and manners,
oh god, yeah.
and I think that is really a big issue. So,
Yeah.
as a mother of 2 sons, I was big on manners, and I don't wanna hear that, this is not everything you wanna think or say is appropriate for all contexts.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I had a student ask 5 minutes before the bell to go to the bathroom, and I said, "No, you can wait till the bell rings." And he said, "But I gotta take a dump." And I said, "You may not say that to me.
Yeah.
I am an adult woman. I don't wanna hear that. That's inappropriate."
Yeah.
I mean, his friends thought it was funny. To me, that is not funny
Yeah.
to say that to me.
Yeah.
That's outrageous to
Yep.
say that to me. What that reveals is such a lack of boundaries and manners that, and maybe people listening are chuckling. To me, that was not funny at all. I don't wanna hear that, I don't wanna you know
Yeah.
but it was meant to push back on me. It was meant to make
Yes.
you comfortable. You don't say that to your teacher.
Yeah, and they wanted to steal the attention of the classroom to him, disrupt whatever you were talking about.
Mhm,
And yeah, I mean, and obviously we live in a society where manners aren't respected anywhere. Otherwise, this horrid person wouldn't be in office right
mhm,
now. With
mhm.
and it's just like at so many levels of our society, just being like a disrespectful jerk is celebrated.
Yep.
I don't know. One of the lines I said, like when people were like saying, "Oh, you think you're smart and all this," and I'd say, "I'm gonna remember you said that when you're working for me." And
Mhm,
and that would silence them too because you kinda indicate it's like, "Okay, I see where you've established yourself on the social hierarchy because you can't go into a meeting and speak like that and get a high-paying job if
yeah.
you're not gonna have basic manners."
Yeah, you're not gonna tell go to a high paying job and say, "I gotta take a dump."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like, "Excuse me." No. Like, and the same thing with, I mean, the scatological stuff, I say, in my day, that was embarrassing, you should be
Yeah.
embarrassed. There's girls in here, like, don't you, like, wanna, I mean, don't the basic rules apply of, like, but no, the manners, are not there.
Well, yeah, and they don't like when a and this these little bully kids, when they say something like that. But then it's like, they don't wanna be held accountable because 'cause they're conveying it's like, "Aren't you embarrassed to say that? Do you have problems with your bodily functions?
Yeah,
Is this" I mean, if you start to it's like, you just said something that is really humiliating for you, and I think you need to know how humiliating, how badly that reflects on you.
mhm.
And but you have to almost, like, present this in a way that that laughter turns on that kid.
Yeah, and that's what I do because I mean, I'm sorry to talk so much about this, but it's a part of my day is
That's
this
important.
really loud farting on
Uh,
purpose
yeah.
all day, and I'll say, that is for the restroom. Do you have an upset stomach? You may be excused. Like, but I'm not laughing at this, and so that is what you have to, like, try to do.
Well, and, me personally, and I guess I'm just kinda but it's like, I would get, like, some air freshener, go spray it right by that kid, and like, you stink because what you did just it stinks." I guess you have to be able to identify which one it is.
Yeah,
But, I mean,
yeah.
it's just like, that is so I don't think I mean, no girl's ever gonna wanna go out with a boy who stinks. Like, if you're sitting there, it's like you can't control your bodily functions because these
There's a
kids are
question.
doing it on purpose to be disruptive, and that is gross. I mean, that is gross.
They're doing it on purpose, and there's a question from Courtney, where do you draw the line between calling them out and shaming them in a harmful way? I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely, I would err on the side of ignoring, and what I'm talking about are egregious cases of people who come in every day and do this as loudly as they can. A person that has a moment of, as we all do with our bodies, of embarrassment, I wouldn't do that. This, but we're talking about people that are trying to control the classroom with this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've
And
spent
that's
enough
I
time on that maybe. But I agree, either you don't, even though there's this terrible behavior, I'm trying to model, dignity and manners, and so shaming somebody on purpose wouldn't be part of that.
Now see, that's interesting because I talk about that a lot, and a lot of this is because of just what I had to go through because 'cause I'm a product of this, right? I'm a
Mhm,
product of trying to survive that system,
mhm,
and, when I was getting bullied by these kids, I would bully back, and
mhm.
it's like and I think humility is the key because if he's doing these disgusting because people are always worried, and I encounter this a lot where people say, "Well, we can't be like them," you know? You have to stand up to bullies. You have to
Yeah,
treat bully and if you allow them to do these things and continue to do that thing, they're disrupting the class, and, like, yeah, when we put it in terms of, like, shaming things in a harmful way, and then people say, "You're just gonna make them more set in their ways." Actually, the word humiliate, is to establish it makes somebody humble,
mm,
humility. You establish humility through humiliation. And it's like, yes, it's like we have to be careful about it and it's case by case. But we're talking about kids who are throwing things at the professor, they're kids that are throwing things, they're disruptive. And if there are good kids in class, these good, decent kids who actually want to hear what you have to say, they're being deprived of that opportunity to have that education. So
mhm,
I always go far. It's like this has to end today. You are
mhm.
not going to do that again. And whatever it takes to make them stop, I think is important. But
Yeah,
yeah, I know, but what Courtney's saying is important too. We do need to have these conversations because it's easy as we're talking about this because people just don't understand the reality of what these classrooms are like. And again, thank you again, Liz, for being here and just validating my experience a
yeah.
lot.
No, yeah, and I mean, it does, and thank you for validating mine because it's very lonely. And it's lonely. I don't have there. It's lonely among the other teachers because it's so it feels like it's difficult to go do this and to be able to talk about it and to remember that it is going to be remembered and there's by some I'll reach some.
Well, and the other thing too is because we're worried about this kid who's farting in class. And another thing white supremacists do is, if you come to school with a new outfit, they will if you're not in their group, they will destroy that outfit, Like you're probably not seeing this stuff that they do.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
they'll throw a kid down in the mud and then they'll spend the rest of the day, you know, and it's sort of like these are the kids are the ones who are farting in class. And
Yeah.
so I just don't have sympathy for a kid who's farting in class. I'm thinking of all the people that kid is bullying. I
Hmm.
never worry about the feelings of the oppressor. I am always concerned with helping the oppressed.
Well,
And this is the stuff that's going on is bad.
one thing that happened with one of the worst of the ringleaders
Yeah.
is that
Well,
I, you know, confronted him in class and I said, you think this is so funny, but your friends are behind you rolling their eyes. You know who's
yeah.
tired of this? Not just me, they are too. And I could
Yes.
see his face fall
Yes.
because he was afraid that I was right. And
Yes.
and I said, "These people don't think it's funny either. I don't think it's funny, but they're rolling their eyes behind you." And his eyes got big for a second, and then I kicked him out of the room, and his friends, his little crew, they were like, "Love ya, love ya." They were calling after him because they knew that he was gonna come back to them and say,
Oh.
"Who's rolling their eyes behind the back of my head?"
Oh
They were
gosh.
afraid because they knew that they knew too that me saying that really got to him.
Gosh.
That
Have
was
you
so interesting
Oh, go ahead.
when that happened, because I lost my temper and I was
Yes.
like, I'm I'm not the only one that's sick of this.
Yes.
Let's call him Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, your friends, Matt, they're sick of you too.
Yeah.
And then as he was kicked out of the room, he said they were like, "Love you, Matt. See you after school." They wanted to be sure they were still in his good graces because they knew that was dangerous territory.
Yes. And that is important to be aware of. But what you said made me remember something. Made me remember the presidential debates. And I
Mhm.
mean, it's the exact same thing. Remember how Kamala's like, people are leaving his rallies because they're boring, you
Yes.
know? And when she did that, I stood up and applauded, but
Mhm.
I wish she'd gone just a little farther because you can push these white supremacists into narcissistic collapse. And I
Mm.
keep telling everybody, this is the important thing we have to remember is that these white supremacists, they believe a narrative over the truth. They're indoctrinated through rote to believe a narrative over the truth. Every time they see something that's a fact, they like to think of themselves as superior and better and everything and entitled to the world. And when they see a fact that shows that that's not the case, they deny that. You
Mhm.
know, so and what you see is they become so committed to this ideology of nothing that, they go through life, they become willing to, steal elections,
Right.
commit criminal acts. They become abusive people. We have this whole child molester thing going on in our society.
Right.
And it's because nobody stood up to them in those moments early on, because people I say it's like if you shame them, you make them more in their ways. And it's actually the opposite is true. If you show them the road they're walking down, you
Mm.
know, you teach them humility and to be humble and to treat the people around them with respect. And what they're doing is, yeah, your crowd doesn't think you're funny, buddy. Everybody's not laughing with you. They're laughing at you. So
Yeah.
you sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
And then they're on a path to decency.
I said, "Everybody's tired of you. This is so boring that you do this every day. People are rolling their eyes behind your back, Matt.
Yeah.
It's not as funny as you think it is, and it's not just me who thinks that. Is who's tired of this. Your friends are too." Oh, did his eyes get big at that?
Yeah.
That was the first thing he ever heard me say that he listened to.
Yeah, and give yourself the power to do that. And if you break through, and that's the other thing is you can then get through to those kids. Courtney was asking if this is only I mean, it's this kind of thing is indoctrinated throughout the United States. So there's a lot of different diverse places where this happens. But my school was all white kids, so I guess I can't give you a complete fair
Yeah,
answer
and I
there.
can't either because this is mostly, white kids with some, Hispanic kids, a few of them, who are, because this is a rural agricultural area, and so that's it. I actually don't think there are any, black kids in this school.
You know what a lot of it is too is this culture, the American culture. Everybody's indoctrinated to think that the ignorant opinion is just as valid as the educated one.
Mhm,
And so to the point where educated people just kind of relinquish their power and just be
mhm,
like, "Well, I have to be respectful of your idea," which is just complete nonsense. But you're a teacher. It's your
mhm,
job, and it's like even me as a teacher too. It's just like, "Look, I'm the teacher. I'm the authority here. You've
right,
done nothing." It's like you're here to learn from me. And it's
right,
like if you bring a reasonable question, and that doesn't mean you have to accept everything I have to say. If you bring a reasonable, honest, respectful question, we'll discuss it. But if you're just spewing nonsense that was
right.
proven wrong 3,000 years ago, we're not having it because you're
We're not
wasting
gonna waste
everybody's
our
time.
time on that. Yeah, and I had that too, like, um, would have a poem and then in this guy pretending to analyze the poem, and he says, "Well, I think this poem's about aliens." And I said, "No, it's not about aliens. It's not at all about aliens. It was written in 1830. It was not about aliens." "Well, anyone could think, I thought you said all of our opinions matter."
Oh boy.
And I was like, "Well, no, they have to be grounded in something thoughtful, and saying this is about aliens, isn't thoughtful." You know?
Yeah. Well,
So
I would have just said, okay, where in the poem do you
so
think, what word, make him, you always got to put them on the spot. They want to make you defend yourself. You got to make them defend their dumb things that they
Mhm,
say.
mhm.
Yeah. Or what is it called? Disruptive things that they're saying. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like so much of our and it's really hard because so much of our cultural conditioning, like for you and me, Liz, is to kind of passively enable this kind of behavior. And
Yeah.
so we have to deliberately overcome, a lot of the things that society expects of us. And then people just don't understand the reality of what those classrooms are like.
Yeah, yeah, and right, I have to overcome I'm intimidated. I'm also intimidated as a woman by the popular mean girls who exist, and, like, that still gets to you, like,
Yeah.
I'm part of society. I'm a human being, and, to be made fun of for wearing weird clothes and stuff by these mean girls, that hurts. All still, and I have to push back on that, and I feel I feel all the things that I feel as a person who's been on this earth for half a century. I bring those with me into the classroom, and then to have to in real time negotiate all of these things in front of kids who are throwing things at you is it's a lot.
Yeah.
So
You're
I
saying the throwing stuff has pretty much been.
pretty much done. Yeah, pretty much done. But there's other disruptive things, but the throwing stuff at me, that was the one they did actually take seriously. It
Yeah.
yeah, and
And
that
you've
was
been
just one class, but it was the class with the worst ringleader in it.
ugh. And you've been teaching this class since September?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how I mean, has it got easier?
Yes, I've adjusted to it. So it's gotten easier. And I mean by adjusted, I think I've gotten more realistic expectations of what I can expect. I also am not having been in higher ed, you meet only a couple times a week with your classes, and so every class is like of extreme importance in terms of content and discussion, and there's a lot more, unfortunately, downtime and dead time when you have to meet with these kids day after day after day. So I've kind of slowed the pace and realized, well, I'll see them again tomorrow if this class didn't work out. Whereas when you're teaching in the college level, one class is not expendable. Here it is, so
Yeah,
get one or two good classes a week or good moments a week. I've had to
yeah.
adjust to all that. And that has gotten easier.
I found a lot of times I mean, teaching for me in high school was just like maybe on the first week, depending if you're lucky, you'd have a couple kids that instantly trust you and you can work with them. And then
Mhm,
it's just like a process of throughout the school year
mhm.
trying to earn the trust of all the students.
Right.
And there were some that it's like I didn't earn their trust until the last day. And honestly, it's not like at that point, it's not even the content of that whole year. It's just the only thing you convey in that whole year is you earn the trust of one kid and you say, look, the next time, going forward, just understand there are some people that are in your corner. And then that lesson is more important than, any book or anything you would have said. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's kids that I never got through to throughout the
No.
whole year.
Yeah, but I think just, the idea that people do take literature and ideas and art seriously and don't mock them by knee jerk reaction isn't just to make fun of this, but there's people like that's a new idea, and that might open up something for somebody, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I'll have to keep spinning my thoughts on this as I there's
yeah,
just so much to think about. I guess we're at close to an hour now though, so yeah, I
okay,
guess
yeah.
but, yeah, if you've got any final thoughts or anything you wanna say.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody who listened in. I appreciate your comments. I want, people out there to realize that what you see on the national stage has really deep roots.
Yes.
And it makes me sad to think that these kids, so somebody asked how old, they're 16. So they were in kindergarten when Trump was first elected. They have no memory of anything else. Their parents are probably 35 years
Yeah.
old. So their parents, most of their parents' conscious adult life has been under this Trump regime, and and all of their conscious life has been. And so where they'll go from here, what they'll be adults in a couple years, and
Yeah.
this is a generational problem, and it's really deep. So I think encouraging anybody who wants to make a change to realize that
Yeah.
going and working with kids is going to pay long-term dividends because
Yeah.
the kids now don't have any memory of anything else, and they need to be shown other ways of being and thinking from those of us who did live in other eras.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got so many different articles I've written about, like, trying to process my experience growing up. I know we got a lot of really brilliant and thanks, Teralex, for your question, and Annabelle and Lefty Prof, everybody. The comments have been really good. And since this is like an education and, oriented talk, I wanna, like, offer an assignment to everybody in the chat. And it's like, if there's something in this that really kinda resonated with you or you wanna talk about more, please write an article about it and tag me in it and tag Liz in it too. You'll be able to see where we are in the replay. We have to have this digital think tank. Deidre and I have been talking about that and just kind of convey this better strategy for how to implement a more effective system because we do have to defeat, what's in the White House. Yeah, like you said, the roots start in schools and we just kind of passively allow it. And we
mhm,
have to stop allowing our, these outside nefarious influences to indoctrinate our kids with this, rude white supremacy thinking that
mhm.
will ultimately destroy their lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks, Liz, for the work you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. And if anyone wants to follow the Substack, it's new. It's just got a couple things up, but I'm going to keep putting things on there. I'd love to hear from you. It's called No Poets
Here, I'll
Society.
I'll find it here real quick. I'll
Yeah,
get the
and
link here.
it's there's no, obviously no paywalls or anything on it. It's just going to be a place for me to put up what we've been talking about here and think through it.
I'll throw it here in the chat so you guys can put it there. But yeah, seriously, everybody, I really do need because everybody's so brilliant in the chat, and you'll see it down at the bottom there. So, and they should be able to follow you from this
Yeah,
from this too. So you'll
for
get a few
sure.
more people.
And,
But
I really, really appreciate the chance. I have not had any place where I could talk about this until now,
yeah,
besides with my husband, who's very patient. But, this has been great to be able to bring this to you and to have this conversation really feels good. So,
good. I'm
yeah.
so glad.
Yeah.
Fortify yourself, feel validated, and we really, really appreciate you. All the wonderful people have been the chat, the comments in the chat. Everybody is throwing you a lot of love,
Yeah.
and I keep telling people, it's like
Yeah.
forget about the. Go ahead.
It says, "Please come back." So thank you, Tara.
Yes. And, there's Daedra, and I was just gonna say, you have to come on with Daedra and me because Daedra's brilliant too and was just talking about this, so that's really important. And, yeah, it's like, I was just talking to somebody the other day, everybody's focused on the presidential election, it's the down ballot stuff, it's the being on school boards, it's being a teacher, that's how we reform our society, we the people have the power, and it's just these fights aren't too small, no fight is too small, we have to do it, and a lot can be said by just standing in front of the class of kids and reading a little Thoreau, and just you'll get through to a couple of them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Have them watch Northern Exposure, that might be something to work.
Yeah, there you go.
Alright, well, thank you so much, I know you're busy, but yes, I'll definitely have you back on, we got a lot of talks to do, and this is
Okay.
just something that's always on my mind, so
Yeah,
I
no, I
appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thanks for all your work and for
Yeah.
amplifying our voices. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much, Liz, and thanks to everybody in the comments, and okay, like I said, do the homework, everybody, I wanna see myself tagged in some important,
Yeah.
responses to this talk.
Exactly.
All
Okay,
right.
bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.